Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling something you do all the time without even realizing it.
Oh, yeah. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's mental time travel, that incredible ability our minds have to revisit the past and envision the future.
Mental time travel. Yeah, such a fundamental part of being human, isn't it? And yet we rarely stop to think about how it shapes our thoughts and feelings and actions.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, you shared a fascinating article from Scientific American called Why We're So Preoccupied by the Past.
It's a great one.
There was this one concept that really jumped out at me, the past-future asymmetry. The idea that we spend way more time talking about the past than the future.
It is surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'd think with all the anxiety we have about what's to come, we'd be constantly talking about the future.
But nope. The research is clear in books, movies, everyday conversations. The past dominates our discussions. So why are we so obsessed with the past? Is it just because it's familiar territory? Like the article suggests, I mean, we have a ton of information about our past, right? Memories, experiences, stories. It's easy to draw on all of that when we're talking to people.
Familiarity definitely plays a role, for sure.
Ugh.
But I think there's more to it than that.
Okay, I'm listening. What else is going on here?
Well, think about this. Our past experiences are kind of like a database for our brains. It's how we make sense of the present and how we anticipate the future. Every interaction, every success, every mistake. It all becomes data that helps us understand the world.
Okay, that's starting to make sense. So our past is constantly shaping our perception of the present and how we approach the future.
Precisely. And this bias toward the past, it has some pretty interesting implications for how we form impressions of others.
Ooh, let's talk about that. Those first encounters with someone new always fascinate me.
Think about it. When you meet someone for the first time, what information are you looking for?
We usually start with the basics, where they're from, what they do, maybe some shared interests.
Exactly. You're basically piecing together a narrative about their past to get a sense of who they are now. And from that, you start making predictions about their future behavior.
It's like we're trying to predict if this person will be a friend or an enemy, a potential partner, or someone to avoid, all that based on very limited information.
Yes. And it's fascinating how much weight we give to those first impressions. Our brains are wired to quickly categorize people based on past experiences.
But those assumptions can be misleading, right? I mean, we all know people who have surprised us, defied our expectations.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting. Because while our past experiences can be helpful guides, they can also blind us and prevent us from seeing people clearly.
So how do we find that balance? Learning from the past without letting it dictate how we interact in the present and future.
That's the million-dollar question, and it's something we'll explore further as we go. But one key takeaway is this: becoming aware of our own biases and how they influence our perceptions. That's a crucial first step.
Awareness is key. I like that. So we've talked about how the past shapes our impressions of others. What about how it influences our own behavior? The article mentioned something about memories acting as navigation tools.
Right. It's amazing how our brains can pull up memories from the past that are relevant to our current situation, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
Like that example in the article, the smell of a bakery triggering a childhood memory and making the person more likely to buy a pastry.
It's a perfect example of how past experiences can subconsciously influence our present actions. And it's not just about sensory cues like smells. It could be a phrase someone uses at a particular location, even a specific emotion that triggers a cascade of memories and feelings.
So are you saying that we're basically walking around with all these past experiences tucked away in our minds, ready to be activated at any moment?
Exactly. It's like having this massive library of memories that our brains get access to inform our decisions, guide our actions, shape our emotional responses.
That's both fascinating and a little bit freaky. It makes you realize how much of our behavior is driven by things we're not even aware of.
It does raise some interesting questions about free will.
Hmm.
But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's talk about something closely tied to memory rumination.
Ah, yes. The art of dwelling on the past, especially the negative stuff.
Exactly. And while reflecting on past experiences can be helpful for learning and growth, getting stuck in that cycle of rumination can be detrimental to our mental well-being.
So what's the difference between healthy reflection and unhealthy rumination?
It's all about perspective and intention. When we reflect on the past with the goal of learning and moving forward,
Hmm.
it can be a powerful tool for personal growth. But when we get caught up in a loop of negative thoughts and self-criticism, that's when rumination becomes a problem.
Like the difference between looking back to learn from a mistake versus beating ourselves up over it again and again?
Exactly. And that kind of negative self-talk can really take a toll on us. contributing to feelings of anxiety, sadness, even depression.
So how do we break free from those thought patterns? Is it all about mindfulness, as the article mentioned?
Mindfulness can be a powerful tool for managing rumination, for sure. But it's not the only solution. There are a number of strategies that can be helpful, from cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to simple lifestyle changes like exercise and spending time in nature.
It sounds like finding ways to shift our focus from the past to the present is key.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting because as we've seen, our brains are wired to favor the past. So consciously redirecting our attention to the present moment takes effort and practice.
Like retraining our minds to break free from ingrained patterns?
In a way, yes. And the more we practice bringing our attention to the present moment, the easier it becomes to notice when we're slipping into those ruminative thought patterns and gently redirect our focus.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. The past-future asymmetry, how memories shape our perceptions and behaviors, the dangers of rumination. What's coming up in the next part of our deep dive?
Well, we've been focusing a lot on the past. So in the next part, we'll shift our attention to the future. We'll explore why we're so drawn to it, even though we're not very good at predicting it. And we'll delve into some strategies for navigating the uncertainty of what lies ahead.
I'm already intrigued. This is shaping up to be a truly mind-bending exploration of mental time travel. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll continue our journey through the fascinating landscapes of our minds. Welcome back, everyone. We're in the thick of it now, unpacking mental time travel. And in the last part, we dug up some interesting quirks about how our minds are wired to lean on the past.
It really is remarkable how much those past experiences influence our perceptions and decisions, often without us even knowing it's happening.
Absolutely. But for this part, let's switch gears and journey into the realm of the future. You know, that mysterious and often anxiety-inducing place our minds love to explore.
It's fascinating, isn't it? We spend so much time thinking about the future, making plans, setting goals. But like the article pointed out, our ability to actually predict what will happen, pretty limited.
It's so true. How many times have I made these elaborate plans only to have them totally derailed by something unexpected?
Happens all the time. And yet we're so captivated by the future.
Mm.
It's that mix of possibility and uncertainty, I think, that keeps us hooked.
So if we're not so great at predicting the future, why are we so obsessed with it? What's the evolutionary advantage of all this future-oriented thinking?
Well, one theory is that it's all about survival. Being able to anticipate threats and plan accordingly would have been crucial for our ancestors, back when they were navigating dangerous environments.
That makes sense. If you're constantly on the lookout for danger, you're less likely to end up as someone's lunch.
Exactly. And even though our world is much safer now than it was for our ancestors, those survival instincts are still hardwired in our brains.
So we're basically walking around with these ancient brains trying to make sense of a modern world. No wonder we get anxious.
It is a bit of a mismatch. But beyond survival, there's another key aspect of future thinking that's essential for progress: our drive to create and innovate.
Ah, so it's not all doom and gloom. You're saying our future-oriented thinking is also what's led to all the amazing advancements we've made as a species.
Absolutely. Our ability to imagine new possibilities, to envision a better future, it fuels our creativity, drives us to solve problems, invent new technologies, push the boundaries of what's possible.
Like we have this built-in motivation engine constantly pushing us to strive for more.
Exactly. And that drive to improve our circumstances, to create a better future for ourselves and for future generations. It's powerful.
But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it? Sometimes that focus on the future can lead to anxiety and stress.
True. When we get caught up worrying about what might happen, we lose sight of what's happening right now, and we miss out on the joys of the present.
It's like we're so busy planning for tomorrow that we forget to live today.
Yes, and that's where mindfulness comes in. Remember, we talked about that.
Right. Bringing our attention back to the present moment, noticing our thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Exactly. When we practice mindfulness, we create space between our thoughts and our reactions. We're less likely to get swept away by worries about the future or regrets about the past.
Like hitting the pause button on the mental time travel
Oh.
and just allowing ourselves to be present in the here and now.
Yes. And in that space of presence, we often find peace and clarity. We can connect with our values, make conscious choices, and take actions that align with the future we want.
So it's not about ignoring the future, it's more about approaching it with that mindful awareness.
Exactly. Finding that balance between planning for the future without getting lost in anxieties about what might happen.
I like that mindful future planning. It's like taking the best of both worlds, the wisdom of the past and the possibilities of the future, using them to inform our choices in the present.
That's a great way to put it.
Mm.
And it speaks to how interconnected our mental time travel abilities really are. We're not just passively hopping between the past and future. We're actively weaving those experiences together to create this narrative that guides our lives.
It's like our minds are constantly creating this tapestry, drawing threads from the past, present, and future to make something beautiful and meaningful.
I love that analogy. It highlights how creative our minds are, shaping our own experiences and the world around us.
This has been such a fascinating exploration. We've delved into how our past shapes our actions and ventured into the tricky terrain of future thinking.
But there's still more to uncover. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some practical strategies for harnessing the power of mental time travel to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
I can't wait. It feels like we're just getting started. Be sure to join us for the grand finale. We'll tie everything together and leave you with some actionable insights. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into mental time travel. We've explored some fascinating ways our minds journey through the past and the future. And now I'm wondering, how can we use this knowledge to actually improve our lives? Maybe even chart a better course for ourselves.
That's a great question. How do we become more skilled time travelers, so to speak? It's not about controlling time, of course, but about harnessing the power of our minds to create a more fulfilling and meaningful experience.
I'm all ears. What are some of the key takeaways our listeners should keep in mind?
One crucial insight is that the past isn't just a static collection of memories. It's a dynamic force that shapes how we see the present and influences our choices in the future. So the key is becoming more aware of how those past experiences are shaping our current reality.
That makes sense. It's like we're carrying around this invisible baggage from our past, and sometimes it weighs us down without us even realizing it.
Exactly. So the first step is to acknowledge those past experiences, both the good and the bad, and then explore how they might be influencing our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors right now.
So it's not about dwelling on the past or trying to change it. It's more about understanding how it's shaping our current perspective.
Exactly. Once we have that awareness, we can start to make more conscious choices about how we want to move forward. We can let go of old patterns that no longer serve us, and we can draw on positive experiences to fuel our growth and inspire our actions.
It's like we're taking back our power, recognizing that we're not just products of our past, but active participants in shaping our present and our future.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another important aspect of skillful time travel, the ability to envision the future we want to create.
That sounds pretty exciting. But we talked earlier about how our predictions about the future are often off the mark. So how do we envision a future that we can't even fully predict?
It's not about predicting the future with absolute certainty. It's more about setting intentions, identifying our values, and taking actions that align with the kind of future we want to experience.
So instead of trying to map out every step of the journey, we focus on the direction we want to head in.
Precisely. Like setting a compass heading. We might run into unexpected detours and roadblocks along the way, but as long as we keep our core values and intentions in mind, we can navigate those challenges and stay on course.
I like that analogy, embracing the uncertainty of the future while still having a sense of purpose and direction.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that our future selves aren't set in stone. We're always evolving, learning, and growing. So the future we envision today might look different tomorrow, and that's okay.
So we're giving ourselves permission to adapt and change our course as we learn and grow.
Exactly. That flexibility is key because it lets us respond to unexpected opportunities and challenges with creativity and resilience.
So we've talked about being aware of our past, envisioning our future, and embracing flexibility. What are some practical ways our listeners can actually develop these skills?
One powerful practice is journaling. Taking a few minutes each day to reflect on your thoughts, feelings, and experiences can help you understand how your past is shaping your present. It's also a great way to explore your values and get clear on your intentions for the future.
I love that. It's like keeping a written record of our mental time travels.
Exactly. And another helpful strategy is visualization. Spending some time each day imagining yourself living in alignment with your values, achieving your goals, and experiencing the future you desire, it can be incredibly empowering.
Like creating a mental blueprint for the life we want.
Exactly. And the more we do that kind of positive visualization, the more likely we are to make choices and take actions that support those aspirations.
It's amazing how powerful our minds can be in shaping our reality. We've covered so much in this deep dive. Is there one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes. Remember that mental time travel isn't just some abstract idea. It's a fundamental part of being human.
Oh,
It shapes our thoughts, emotions, and actions every single day. And by becoming more aware of how our minds travel through time, we can harness that power to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
That's a great takeaway. Time travel might not be possible in a DeLorean, but our minds are constantly journeying through the past, present, and future. Pay attention to where your mind goes and see what you discover. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.